Hey there, people. This is Spray Love, and I'm here to talk to you about the difference between three fragrances I almost own because there's one that's like a very tiny size, but yeah, it still counts, you know. So it's the difference between Eros. I've got that tiny Eros right there, and Guess 1981 Los Angeles, which is often compared to Eros, but also Versace Eros Flame, which is a fragrance that I actually own because I like it too much. I had like the little tiny size, and um, now I have the bigger one from a trade. So, yeah, hey. All right. So, the first one I'm going to smell is Eros right there. Yeah, it's a classic. It's like a modern classic Eros because it's like a um, fresh and spicy and sweet fragrance that just really works well. You've got apple in the opening that's pretty evident, like an evident blast of apple and spices in the opening, while not smelling at all like an apple pie or an apple crumble or some sort of apple dessert. It's not a gourmand. It's just a, fresh apple, but whatever. It's really good. All right. Then Eros Flame. Eros Flame is pretty similar. The opening is a bit more fruity, but also a bit more fresh. Eros Flame has got like fresher citrus notes that are more apparent than in Eros, even though Eros still has citrus notes in the top. It's just that in Eros Flame there is no apple. There is mostly just citruses and kind of like a bergamot and like sweet um, different sweet fruits too, like, and there's the apparent note of like kinoto, which is uh, very interesting in Eros. It has a fresher, it's like a fresher take, yet it's still spicy and fresh. It's still the same thing, it's just done a bit differently. It's the same purpose. And then yeah, guess you can tell is like it's not as powerful as Eros and Eros Flame. It has a plum note. It is more winter oriented, I think, than the other two, and it has a bit of it's a bit more reminiscent with other fragrances such as 1 Million, things like that, because of the heart of like kind of spicy, perhaps cinnamon, whatever, and very amped up sweetness, and more like a vanilla or something like that. In all the fragrances, I think, like all three fragrances have vanilla notes. In the dry down, Eros and Eros Flame will be more focused around Ambrox, and in the dry down, like modern woods. The more it dries down, the more it's apparent. Eros during the mid and the dry down will have more and more of that um, almost funky ambroxan feel, like almost funky musk um, that arises. All the fragrance, like it has like a sportsy, musky, uh, harsh note that just gets amped up and amped up during the life of the fragrance. Eros Flame has that too, but it's a lot less apparent. It still retains that funkiness, but it's like a bit down. The citruses stay longer. Um, the whole like the Eros Flame is actually, I think, has a more kind of refined Italian vibe to it than Eros, even though Eros is the original and they're both like, Versace fragrances. But It has a vibe that you could say it's like more like summery flame, but it's an all year rounder, easy all year rounder. It's spicy, it's sweet, it's everything you want. So Eros Flame is still very like all year round. I think that the original Eros is a bit more difficult to wear in summer, uh, because of that like very intense, harsh aspect to it. Um, but in comparison, Guess 1981 Los Angeles, it's interesting because this one is it's been compared with Eros all the time. It's always like, oh yeah, it's kind of an alternative to Eros, or are they're trying to do an Eros style fragrance. I think it is an Eros style fragrance, perhaps. It says warm spice, but also fresh fragrance, a bit like 1 million also is kind of that kind of fragrance too. I guess 1981 Los Angeles also has a plum note, which is very apparent in that fragrance. So it get a sweeter, rounder feeling to it. It has more of Christmassy kind of a vibe. It's a bit better, I think, in fall and winter than it would in summer. Although it's a very good. All of those fragrances are easy all year rounder, easy all year rounder. I think the less all year rounder of the three would be the original Eros, because in summer I think it's a little cloying, it's a little delicate in high heat situations. Eros Flame, not at all. And Guess 1981 Los Angeles has got this vibe that's easier perhaps in the summer just because it's less aggressive. It's a less aggressive fragrance. It projects less. It's got moderate projection compared to the other Eros fragrances, which is like beast mode fragrance. Like they both are beast mode projectors. They both like have like super high potency. Guess 1981 Los Angeles though is a little less. It's still a good projector. By all means, it's a bit more mature. In that it doesn't like radiate a lot more. It's not perhaps as easy to wear outside, but anyway, I think that my favorite out of the three would be Eros Flame, just because you can wear that any damn time. In the summer you just spray one or twice, and once or twice it's gonna do good. um, it's a fragrance that is has like the complement capacity of the original Eros. It has that sexy Italian vibe with the citruses also. It like that are more apparent, a lot more apparent than in Eros. And Italians like like Italian fragrances are very good in general for the citruses. Like if you think about it, it's easy to notice the Dolce and Gabbana fragrances. Um, the like the Versace fragrances. They all have very exquisite citrus notes in there. And yeah, and the sweetness is very fruity, very fresh, very like sparkling, and it's amazing in high heat situations, I think. But it's also amazing anywhere during the year because of that. You know, modern wood dry down with like this Eros DNA put in there that gives it a bit more like aggressivity during the moments you want it more, like the evening and stuff. You've got that thing that complements very well with a healthy body odor, like you wash yourself every day, and like you're you're good with your body and health, and you have hygiene. then the Eros dry down just really well complements the body odor, the natural body odor, and that's something that I really like, and it kind of goes with the funkiness. If you're funky yourself, it will probably be worse, But if you have a good hygiene and you just want that little edge of, you know, a bit better body odor, you're going to dance or you're in high heat situation, so you sweat a lot, or you're going to the gym. It's got that thing that will gonna make you more appealing, more sexy. Um, I think my second favorite one would still be Guess 1981 Los Angeles, because in some situations it's gonna work a lot better when you don't want to project that much, when you're indoors most of the time, um, when you don't, you're not a sweaty type of situation, more of a formal thing going on, perhaps also fall and winter. This one is gonna be better, so I'm happy to have both because they will complement. If I want that, kind of a Eros vibe, I can get either of those. Guess 1981 Los Angeles is also quite youthful, 1 million style, but it's just more reserved a bit. I would see that someone who just wants to get like a bit more serious or a bit more, or in a date, a date you don't necessarily want to like project like frenzy and whatever. You want to get like close encounter kind of a vibe, then this one will get you perhaps this kind of Eros likability compliment factor, but um like a bit more comfortable, a bit more cozy, a bit more like close to the skin. So that's a very good date night fragrance too. If I went to a dinner with my wife, I would probably wear that, or even like a dinner with friends, which they all are very close to each other during the dinner. Perhaps I would favor that kind of fragrance over the actual thing, like the actual Eros fragrances. And I think that my least favorite, I'm don't think I'm gonna buy it again, is Eros. I think it's a bit too aggressive, a bit too harsh. It's got even more projection, it's got even more like, but it's intense, that it almost like smell like a body odor at like the dry down for me. It smells like a filthy locker room, I want a bit of that. It's fun to have a bit of that, not too much. I think Eros is too much. I never smelled the actual new flankers of Eros, the eau de parfum, which are not that new anymore. uh in fact, I smelled them in store. I still prefer the Eros flame, but I can't do like a very intelligent video because I don't have like any samples of them. I cannot really talk about them that much. So, that being said, which is your favorite Eros? Is it the original? Perhaps it's on my skin and it doesn't work. Perhaps I'm I'm mistaken in thinking that Eros Flame is the best of all the Eros flankers. It's not really the most popular. I think it's kind of like the most unique of the bunch too, which is probably because why I like it that much. But tell me what you think, and tell me if I'm wrong and you're like, no, guess 1981. It's not even close to the Eros vibe. Oh no, it's a copy of the EDP. Some people say that. I don't know. Perhaps you're right, and I want to hear you about that. So spread love and spray love. Bye bye.